A remarkable rebuild is underway at Tottenham in what is Ange Postecoglou's first season in charge. They have swiftly emerged as serious title contenders for a top 4 finish, and captivated fans and neutrals alike with their exhilarating style of play. But what lies at the heart of this revolution? As the pieces fall into place, it becomes abundantly clear. Postecoglou's vision for Tottenham encompasses a grand ambition to transform it into the club of choice for burgeoning young talents. This season, Tottenham have made headlines for their pull when it comes to attracting young players. Examples include the signings of Swedish sensation Lucas Bergvall and the talented Radu Dragusin, both of whom rejected offers from esteemed clubs like Barcelona and Bayern Munich, which surpassed Tottenham in stature. Of course, the allure of playing time is a major factor, particularly given Postecoglou's style of play and his track record of providing opportunities to youngsters. But one doesn't have to look far back into the club's history to know that it wasn't always like this. The current state of Tottenham stands in sharp contrast to the club's environment just 2 years ago. Then manager Antonio Conte would stress the importance of adding experience to an already aging squad, frequently citing the immediate impact made by a 38-year-old Zlatan Ibrahimovic upon his return to AC Milan as a prime example. His implication was clear. If only Spurs could invest in a few more high-priced veteran players, they might finally win some silverware. A lot has changed since then, but perhaps the most significant development for the club has been the decisive shift from experience to youth. Postecoglou has turned the clock back, giving Spurs their youngest team since the peak years of Mauricio Pochettino. Almost 5 years ago, Pochettino famously said that Spurs needed a painful rebuild to become formidable again. However, that rebuild was continuously avoided for years, both during Pochettino's tenure and immediately after he was sacked, as the club tried everything to squeeze the last few drops out of a squad that had nothing left to give. This only started to change with the arrival of Fabio Paratici as sporting director in 2021. Upon his appointment, he said in an interview, "We have an objective to renew the team with young players, young talent with big potential." Soon after his arrival, he signed Christian Romero, Brian Gill, and Pape Matar Sarr. The next window saw the arrivals of Dejan Kulusevski and Rodrigo Bentancur, exemplifying a certain finesse about Paratici's ability to secure players, particularly from his former club Juventus, even on transfer deadline day. The summer 2022 window then became a battle of preferences, with the club aiming to rejuvenate the squad with young players while Conte sought more experienced additions. Consequently, the signings of Richarlison, Yves Bissouma, and Ivan Perisic were made to strengthen the team immediately, while Destiny Udogie and Jed Spence were brought in for the future. And with the arrival of Pedro Porro the following January, Spurs finally had a long-term solution to their void at right back. Even with no official recruitment team, following the forced resignation of Paratici due to a FIFA ban for alleged transfer fee inflation during his time at Juventus, Tottenham remained steadfast in lowering the average age of their squad in the summer of 2023. This commitment continued with the appointment of new sporting director Johan Lang, who joined from Aston Villa in October 2023, and further reinforced the club's belief in nurturing and utilizing young players. To watch our video on the full story of Tottenham's rebuild, head to the first link in the description or click the card in the top right corner. To drive forward such a youth-oriented revolution, signing players is only half the job. The other crucial aspect involves parting ways with players whose time at the club had extended far beyond what was warranted. This was an area where the club had exhibited a reluctance for years, failing to offload players when they were at their peak and still held considerable market value. Instead, the club held onto them for too long, resulting in a decline in their worth. Following the sale of Kyle Walker to City for £50 million in 2017, which was one of the few instances where Spurs managed to extract full value from a sale, subsequent player sales did not yield similar returns. They sold Christian Eriksen to Inter for just £17 million, lost Jan Vertonghen and Danny Rose on free transfers, and saw Dele Alli join Everton on a performance-weighted deal. The Pochettino veterans were finally starting to leave. but the timing of those departures and the lack of money Spurs recouped meant that the club's rebuild was even more painful than it needed to be. The final and most pivotal moment in this drawn-out process came last year with the appointment of Postecoglou. Finally, Tottenham had a manager who was entrusted with the responsibility to initiate a fresh start for the team. He had a remit, in a way Conte did not, to bid farewell to the old guard, with Harry Kane choosing to join Bayern and Hugo Lloris and Eric Dyer leaving in January after falling down the pecking order. Presently, only Son Heung-min and Ben Davies are left of the veterans. But that much-needed clearing of the decks at Tottenham has finally allowed for opportunities to be given to youngsters, lowering the average age from last season's peak of 27.6 under Conte to 25.8, the lowest level since Pochettino's third season. The point is that Spurs are now in a situation reminiscent of where they were at the start of the Pochettino era. It has been a long time coming, but they can finally look forward to the future with a young, hungry team again. Maintaining a strong relationship between a club and its players often hinges on the contractual agreements in place. Cast your mind back to the early Pochettino years, when Tottenham consistently offered their young talents new long-term contracts with incremental salary raises each year. Notably, Kane inked multiple long-term deals in 2014, 2015, 2016, and finally 2018, while Dele Alli secured 3 contracts within his first 18 months at the club. This approach ensured that the club always retained control of contract situations in the short to medium term. However, a shift occurred during the latter parts of the Pochettino era. Players like Christian Eriksen and Toby Alderweireld hesitated to commit to new long-term deals, leading to a deterioration in the club's atmosphere. The departure of Walker in 2017 and the subsequent struggles to replace experienced players with younger, more ambitious options further impacted the team dynamics. But now, Tottenham are striving to replicate that positive atmosphere of the mid-2010s, when players were always tied down and the club's football and business sides operated in perfect harmony. Udogie and Sarr have recently signed new contracts extending until 2030, longer than anyone else at Spurs. Notably, these contracts were accompanied by modest wages, with both players earning around £50,000 per week. But they have already been rewarded for their excellent performances this season, and if their form continues, it's very plausible that improved contracts would be offered to them in the not-too-distant future, even with several years remaining in their existing contracts. This is the approach that has worked so well for Tottenham in the past, and it was instrumental in building a team that could punch above its weight on the pitch and in the marketplace. The arduous journey to rebuild Tottenham has required so much time, investment, and effort that you might even call it a painful one. But the club is now fully aware they can once again become an attractive destination for young players under a manager who trusts them, just as the club always wanted. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more football news, stories, and insights. Also, don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a beat. And with that, we'll see you in the next video.